Michigan versus USC. Both teams in the Big Ten looking to stay on their run as they continue through week 7 here. Joe, when you look at Michigan versus USC, what I thought last year, for what it's worth, was one of the more entertaining games of last season. When you look at Michigan and USC this year, now going out to the West Coast, how do you see this one playing out?
On FanDuel, USC is favored by 2.5 points, and I would think that they'd have more of an advantage getting to host this game on the West Coast. We're, of course, going to have to bring up the body clock and how that's going to affect this game. It's not a particularly late kick, technically, for the body clock for these Michigan players because it's a 7:30 Eastern time kickoff. But, Blake, one thing really catches my attention. I understand that USC didn't play well against Illinois, and it derailed what was a hot start to their season. They've been dealing with a couple things that kind of impacted that game. Number 1 in adjusted EPA per play on offense. Number 1 in EPA per dropback. 8th in EPA per rush. 2nd in offensive havoc rate allowed. The Illinois game was not a good performance, but it was an aberration. I think that they have troubles traveling across the country and having to play in that 9 a.m. Pacific time slate for them. That's not what this is. Blake, I think that this Michigan team has been really solid, and I think that they've shown that they are a plucky young team that can be a 9-3 team by the end of the year because they've got the schedule to do it. Plain and simple. I do not see a team that has the juice on the outside at receiver to keep up with this USC squad, with Jayden Maiava playing at a top 10 level, with Mekhi Lemon quietly being the best receiver in college football statistically right now, up there with the likes of the big names, Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, if you want to throw all those names together. And on top of this, they have fantastic production at all of their other skill positions. Jacoby Lane is fantastic. Wayman Jordan is fantastic. Blake, this USC team is finally hitting their stride and playing to what everybody's expectation was for what it was supposed to be when Lincoln Riley took it over. So to simply round all that out, I think USC is winning this game.
Whew. Okay, so if I'm Michigan, and I agree with the massive point going to the West Coast here, I think look, I'm not going to say that look what happened at Penn State, but look at some of these teams when they're having to travel far long distances. Penn State gets upset on the West Coast. Oregon has got to go into double overtime over Penn State, regardless of how you feel that way. USC going on the road to Michigan last year is an example of that, when I thought Michigan really just couldn't move the football that well. I know defensively they were still really good, but they had a lot of problems offensively. I look at that and say, Joe, I think you're right that there's got to be something said about going as far as you're going from Michigan all the way to Southern Cal. However, I don't disagree with you when it comes to what USC has been offensively. I think at receiver, they've been great. Joe, here's the hot take that for our Lincoln Riley team that nobody wants to talk about. They've been much better up front along their offensive line. I love McCray, their tight end. I love him. Yeah, I think he does everything well. I think he's the guy for, like, when you're talking about him, like he's going to be in the 4th or 5th round and nobody really cares. And then he's like the second guy for the Lions and he's getting all these catches in the NFL. And you're like, what in the hell's going on? I love their receiver room. I love what they're doing in the run game. Joe, the crazy thing about USC in the run game, and something that they really didn't have from a massive standpoint last year, not only are they 3rd in passing, they're 17th in the country in rushing. And I think that Maiava is playing inside the system, which is making that offense click. The loss to Illinois offensively is not on them. I know they had some turnovers. But here's the thing, though, man. You know what travels? Really good defense and a good run game, which is the bread and butter for Michigan. You know, we look at the Michigan and Nebraska game, and I thought during that game, I know it was close, very close. I kind of felt like Michigan handled that game the entire time, even though that game was as close as it was. Penalties and dumb decisions kept Nebraska in that game. Here's my thing, though. When I look at USC, and I do look at that Illinois game, what worries me for them, man, there was a lot of gaping holes versus Illinois in the run game. And by the way, Illinois running the football right now has been abysmal. Joe, we'll talk about Illinois in just a moment. They're 99th in the country in rushing as Illinois, and they gave up wide open gaps. Now I look at Michigan. What do they do the best with Jam Miller and the boys? They're going to be
Justice Haynes.
I mean, what did I say?
Jam Miller.
Justice Haynes, thank you. I always say that because of the Bama connection, but thank you. But Justice Haynes, what do they do? And Justice Haynes, whether it be Nebraska, whether it be the long run versus Oklahoma, regardless, they are going to be downhill. And my question for USC, I'm not asking you to stop it. I'm asking you, can you even contain it at this point? There were massive gaps that you gave up against Illinois. And listen, I know that you had to go halfway across the country to play that game. I get it. And now Michigan's got to do the same. I get it. But, Joe, when defense and a good run game travels, the USC offense is an aberration of what Lincoln Riley teams are. And I do think they're building defensively. I think they're a lot better than what they were under Grinch. But, man, you got gashed. And it really worries me to see a team that get gashed that much by a team that can't run the football. And so that's why I look at this and say, listen, I am 1,000% with you. The travel thing would worry me. However, when I see a defense and the first P4 team they play, they get run all over on a team that can't run the ball, it's also a big question mark for me too.
Well, but inversely, I would throw back at you as much as, and it's completely justified, and we don't try to make excuses for teams. USC does have an excuse for the way that they played because of the difficult circumstance of having to effectively probably wake up before 5 o'clock on their own body clock to play the game against Illinois. Michigan against Wisconsin allowed a number of big plays through the air. And so far this year, that has been their biggest deficiency is their secondary. Now, I know Rod Moore was out for a period of time and he came back against Wisconsin, but they are 54th in EPA per dropback. They're giving up quite a number of impactful plays to opposing teams' passing attacks. Blake, to me, that's the biggest disparity here. That is the most gigantic disparity because as great as Justice Haynes has been and as great as the rushing attack has been, and as much as there's been this emergence with Donovan McCulley and Andrew Marsh, who had his first big game against Wisconsin, there are starting to be options that are emerging for this Michigan passing attack. Mm-hmm. I know what the USC passing attack is. There's no building blocks. There's nothing that needs to get stacked. Mekhi Lemon is a top 5 receiver in the sport right now. And as strong defensively as this team is for Michigan, and as important as it is to talk about that traveling, I do not believe that they're going to be able to slow down Lemon in that unit. I just don't think so.
I don't disagree with that. And look, I think both secondaries can get had here.
I agree with that.
At a high level. The thing that I do say, though, in reference to the SC secondary, okay, you want to give the Illinois thing, I'm fine. That's okay. Against Michigan State, Joe, that secondary allowed 17.4 yards per completion.
Wait, which team did?
USC gave up 17 against Michigan State, gave up 17.4 yards per completion.
Just to add to one more thing to that, another issue with their corners, which we've talked about in the Illinois preview, is they've allowed 10 plays of 30 yards or more through the air. And I think that they allowed like a comically low number last year. So they're already doing pretty bad in that area.
They're doing bad. And look, I'm with you on the body clock thing about Illinois. That's fine. Illinois is playing at 11 a.m. too. And
not the same. Not the same.
Joe,
not the same.
But not see, the same. Here's the thing, though.
It's not.
I get it. I 1,000% understand it. I get all of the body clock situation stuff. I would agree with you if they gave up 180 rushing yards. They didn't. They gave up over 200 plus. Did they not?
No, they gave up 170.
Okay, 170. No, if you take the Altmaier sack yardage out or the minus yardage, I think they're net at 200.
I don't know what their net rushing yards were, but their rushing yards is 171.
171. I'll pull it up. But regardless of that, I mean, bro, I'm going to lean on this. I think it's a problem. I think it's a massive problem. I think they gave up a lot of gaping holes, and Michigan's going to lean in on it. You had net right here for this. If you take it out, sorry, it was 186.
Okay.
If you do the net. Okay, fine.
All right. I got two things. Go ahead. Finish your saying, then I got two things.
Last thing. I think Bryce Underwood in this wide receiver room, although not great, is going to get a little bit of a rhythm as bad as this USC secondary has been. I lean Michigan, man, right now. I do, because I just really think that run game's going to get moving, and they're going to be able to go in there and get USC.
I have two things that I think are important for this conversation. And by the way, I have been very impressed by Bryce Underwood. I think that he is starting to look tremendous. Like, we're starting to really see who he's going to be in the next couple of years. And as I mentioned, Marsh having the game that he did against Wisconsin is incredibly promising, because that is a young guy that you didn't even know was going to contribute this year, and he's stepping up to the plate. There is a lot that can be drawn from the fact that USC was half asleep against Illinois, and they played like shit. But they came back. And they came back by doing what they do best, which is Maiava being the orchestrator of that offense at a very high level and having
playing fantastic.
The ability to generate big plays through the air when they needed to. That is the difference between these two teams, Blake, because if it does come down to, this isn't Nebraska, when it comes down to a situation where Michigan does theoretically, as you're portraying, build a lead through running the football, say they're up 10. If there's enough time on the clock, USC has the efficiency to score and to cut down on that lead. Michigan does not. And I have a game with Michigan where they played against Oklahoma, and their run game dominated. Justin Haynes had an incredible game, played out of his mind. But they couldn't get back into it because they couldn't move the ball.
Yeah, but Oklahoma has the number one total defense in the country, and they still ran all over.
But hold on. Oklahoma is very similar in the vein of this USC defense, where Oklahoma's corners are their weakness and the rest of the unit is elite. Now, their corners are better than USC's, but to this point, Blake, USC is a pretty good front seven. They've got a pretty
better than Oklahoma's.
It's not. And I'm not implying that is the case.
Still hit big ones on them, and now you're trying to convince me.
But they still lost, is my point, that teams that run the football but can't expeditiously score through the air are going to lose games like this. They lost
to a better team.
USC's a better team.
No, USC is not a better team than Oklahoma.
No. That's not what I said. I meant USC is the better team than Michigan.
Well, they very well may be, and we're going to figure that out on Saturday. But you can't look at the number 5 total rushing defense in the country that got ran all over. By the way, it's the only yardage that they pretty much given up all year. Justice Haynes' run is like a third of the total yards rushing that they've given up all year. So when you look at them, I don't get Michigan to go up in there and clap them cheeks. You go ahead and watch it. They're gonna clap them. They're gonna clap them cheeks up front.
You're gonna be off on this.
Let's go, Big Blue. Go, Big Blue.
I will not. See, this is problematic
for me, though. Yeah. In all honesty, what does really worry me, that USC wide receiver. We had this conversation. We got to get out of this one, but
yeah,
Caleb Williams did not play in the system like Maiava plays in the system, and these receivers are feasting over it. Lemon might be one of the best wide receivers in the country, not named Jeremiah Smith. This kid's special, dude. This kid, what he did against Illinois alone was special.
No, he's been phenomenal. And by the way, I'm not certain what the deal is with Jacoby Lane, by the way, because
he was in a couple weeks ago. He was out, and then now it seems like he's back out again, playing hokey pokey with the injury.
Right. He played against Illinois, and that is one thing I would track. But overall, I think that the team with the most elite group is the USC receiver room, and I think that that's going to be the separation. But we will find out on Saturday.